I've been dating my boyfriend, whom we'll call Michael, for about a year now. We've known each other for years because we've always been in the same friend group since high school. His best friend, whom we'll refer to as John, is also someone I've known for a long time because he's also part of the group. Years ago, John had asked me out, but I turned him down because he has always been somewhat of an arrogant guy who could never admit when he was wrong. Many people find him charming, but I think he's insincere and fake. He seemed offended but brushed it off, even telling people that I had asked him out and he rejected me. That was fine because it didn't affect my life at all. After a few months, all was forgotten, and we just pretended the other one didn't exist. That's how it's been for years, until Michael randomly asked me out, and I decided to give it a shot. It turned out we had a lot of similar hobbies and had a really good time, so we started dating shortly after that. About 6 months ago, Michael started acting strangely, but in really subtle ways. I would talk about how much I loved animals, and he would interject that John also loved animals. It wouldn't be weird, but he did it with everything I talked about, even with the slightest bit of enthusiasm. If I loved it, John loved it just as much. He told me how compatible John and I were and how he wished we meshed more. I eventually told Michael that I really didn't care what John liked because he was kind of pretentious, and we never got along. He seemed really offended but quickly recovered, and by the next day, everything was good again. About a week after that instance, Michael would randomly talk up John seemingly for no reason. Hey, I talked to Brittany yesterday, and man, John is apparently a god in bed, haha. Maybe I should ask the guy for tips? John is volunteering at that shelter we went to a couple of weeks ago. What a caring guy. We should have John make us dinner, he's a great cook. It was every day to every other day that I had to hear about John's greatness, and it got to the point where I initially thought that Michael wanted to date John. Then, 3 weeks ago, after we had some drinks, he asked me, if we ever broke up, would you date someone else in the group? I had no idea what to say because it was so random, but he quickly filled the void by saying, I think I would if I were you, and if John was single. Is he seriously saying that right now? 3 days ago, I confronted him in the kitchen and told him that if he had anything he wanted to tell me, I would listen to it no matter what, and that I would always be there for him. He seemed confused and told me he had no idea what I meant by that. So, I brought up all the times he talked about John and how he would date him and told him that if he really wanted to date John, I understood and would support them. After all, they're best friends, so they obviously have a good connection, right? When I say he blew up, I cannot stress how angry he got. He used a dozen slurs for guys who bat for the same team and said he was disgusted that I saw him like that, and that he would never do something remotely close to that. We ended up getting in a huge fight over it because I certainly don't support his language or attitude toward those folks, and it was just a vibe I got from him. I didn't mean to mislabel him. We haven't really talked, but he's staying at his parents' house right now, and today John called me to tell me he doesn't support Michael's attitude toward me. He even invited me over to talk about it, saying that Michael was 100% okay with it. Am I crazy? Am I making up some convoluted story in my head, or is this bizarre? Update 1. So, I called Michael when he got off work, and the first thing he asked me was if I went to vent to John. Naturally, I didn't because we're not close, and I told him as much. He didn't have much to say to that, so I started on my questions that you guys suggested. Why are you pushing me toward John? Do you want to break up? He got defensive once again and said he refused to talk about it over the phone, suggesting we meet at John's place to talk it out. I asked why John had to be included at all since it's really between the two of us, and he basically told me that it's really between the three of us. I refused to meet at John's for obvious reasons and told him if it had to be the three of us, we could meet at a restaurant. He seemed fine with that, and we scheduled a meeting at a bar that's pretty close to all of us. I showed up early and got us a table that had some privacy. Not long after, John walks through the door. He sat down immediately and started chatting about how we were both so timely and that he liked when women showed up early because it showed they had good time management skills. 25 minutes after Michael was supposed to show up, he texts me and says he had car problems and couldn't make it, but to get to know John since I was already there. I'm just beyond livid at this point. John keeps trying to buy me drinks and even tries to schedule another time to hang out. I confronted him about Michael pushing me toward him, and he acted like he didn't know what I was talking about. I kept mentioning how Michael was talking about him to me, and John just said that it made sense because brothers have brothers' backs. I told him the brothers can have each other and left fuming. Michael has tried calling me 3 times, John has tried 7. I want to cut them both off and say good riddance, but to do that would mean leaving the friend group as well. I don't really have that many friends to begin with, and it makes me so mad that I even have to make this decision. Update 2. I went to Michael's house pretty early this morning since I have work today and really needed this resolved. I had been up all night going back through the comments and trying to piece everything together, and honestly, it was driving me crazy. Michael was alone when I got there, which was a relief because I pictured John showing up like a movie villain. He initially didn't want to let me in, which was really weird, but I told him I wasn't going to leave without talking to him about this. So he finally let me come in, and we sat down to talk. I asked him about last night, to which he said he had car trouble but it was all fixed now. How convenient. I asked him a few more questions but was met with vague answers, so I decided to just cut to the chase and said, why do you want me to like John? Do you want me to date him? Do you want to have three-way intimacy? Once again, instead of answering, he just watched me from his stupid chair and then had the nerve to ask me who I told my suspicions to. So I said I'd been running them through my head but that my mom knew I was coming over to talk. She didn't, but he was starting to be really creepy. He got mad and said it wasn't like that, and I was making him out to be the bad guy because they were looking for something long-term, not just a one-time thing. Yes, he said they. Now that all my suspicions were 100% confirmed, I told him you can't make plans including someone else without their consent, and that I would never be interested in anything with the two of them. I was no longer interested in anything with just him either. I started leaving and told him to never contact me again. Same goes for John, and he could share the message, but then he blocked my way out, saying I had to hear him out, his side of the story. I told him I didn't want to, nor care to, and that he needed to let me leave because my mom was expecting me in the next half hour. He started getting frantic, saying if he could just get John over here to explain, it would all make sense. So, I ran out the back door and used the garden exit to get to my car and locked the doors immediately. He came outside and started pounding on my windows, saying I was making a huge mistake and that I'd regret this. I was bawling in my car when I backed it up to drive away. I'm pretty sure I drove over their mailbox by accident because the back of my car has a huge dent. My car was basically out of gas, so I had to stop, even though all I wanted to do was put as much space between us as possible. That's when I saw the dent on my car, but that was the least of my problems. Right when I was about to leave, who else would call my name but Michael's mom? She was on her way home from the grocery store and was worried because I looked like hell warmed over. I told her about everything that just happened and got more than a few stares from other people, but given what I just went through, I couldn't give a freak. I guess I'm just the crazy lady at Maverick. His mom looked horrified for me and told me to stay as far away from him as possible. She told me to come sit with her in her car where she proceeded to ask me when I met Michael, which was in high school. She figured as much and said that in middle school, he and John snuggled a girl together and have a sealed record because they were minors and supposedly didn't mean to do it. She told me how sorry she was because she said it happened so long ago she thought he changed. She put him in therapy and thought he was better. She said if she had any idea there might have been a chance of this happening, she would have told me immediately. I just gave her a quick goodbye and noped out of there. I'm going to my mom since they both know where I live. I sent a mass text out to everyone in the group detailing everything, and so far, 3 people have said they support me, so that's good, I guess. What do I even do? I'm never talking to them again. I've already blocked them both on everything I could think of, but I've been getting hidden number calls since. I'm considering going to the police station to file a harassment complaint so that it's at least documented. My mom said she's going to call my uncle, who works at the court, and see what the next best step is. Update 3. Life has been crazy, and between everything and the state shutting down again, I've been a mess. I went and talked to the police about getting a restraining order, but the officer I talked to said it fell into domestic violence and had me file a DVOP, domestic violence orders of protection, and we have an unset court date to take it before a judge. I'm nervous as hell about it, but at least something is going to happen. With Michael anyway, because I didn't have a relationship with John, and he never technically harassed me, there's not much I could do with him. I'm still getting a ton of blocked calls, but I'm in the process of changing my number, so that should resolve itself soon enough. I'm back in my apartment, though we've added some new safety features like cameras and new locks, and currently, it's a waiting game. I have to see Michael in court at some point to tell my story, and John's gone MIA. When the police went to talk to him, he wasn't home and hasn't been as far as anyone I talked to knows. I get weird letters left at my door, but they've all been delivered by the post office, so not much I can do about that. It's mostly rambling about love, which gives me the creeps. I've stopped opening them at this point and keep them in the drawer for when I go to court. I have an interview for a new job, so wish me luck. My boss has let Michael in twice since I've been back, and I don't feel safe there anymore. My friends are split 80-20 now. Thankfully, the minority is with Michael and John, but now I know who I can't trust. Anyone who listened to what I had to say and still thinks I'm being irrational because I supposedly led John on is simply insane, no way about it. So good riddance. Unfortunately, my mom wasn't left alone, and someone broke her front window, so the police also had to show up for that one. It's been quiet for 2 days now, and I'm not sure whether to be relieved or nervous. Does looking over your shoulder ever go away? I hope so. Update 4. I got a new job and a new place to live after someone tried to break in when I was out of town. I finally got my day in court, and Michael can't be within 800 feet of me without me being able to call the police. He also can't go anywhere I typically go. The letters really helped with all that because everything else was just my word against his situation. I asked his mom to come as a witness, but she refused to talk against her son, so whatever. But yeah, basically, I'm breathing new fresh air around here. I've seen John twice in passing, and it still gives me the creeps. He's not barred from being around me, so he makes it a point to show up in public sometimes. But the police gave him a very stern and impromptu talk when he showed up to support Michael at court. I think I'm in the clear, but they just want me to know they're still around, which sadly there isn't much I can do to stop John anyway.